take the time on Saturday afternoon and come. This has made my day, you know. I really appreciate all your help I always get from people around me, you know, and really, what can I say? Like, I'll give you like a little bit of introduction of this project. I know maybe like some people know about it. This project, when it started with a dream, and that dream, I could not believe it, you know, that ended up with 2 companies and the book. But actually, this could not done without all of the nice people sitting in this room. You know, they really made the difference. This project, I called it 3H. Just I dreamt about it. And this 3H, you know, it kept up coming big and big and big. And I hope that we can find something which has a really like, I believe it can maybe have a cure for cancer. I cannot say the words cancer, but like, because we are not a doctor, but the research showing that what we discover is going to be really so big, you know. And really, like, what shall I say? Like, I'm a biochemist. I graduated almost like 30 years ago. Bio means life. And since I was in biochemistry, I always look around me and see enzymes, see proteins, and talk to myself, what this enzyme means, what this protein means, and what does mineral do with the enzyme and the protein. And then I came to Canada here. I worked for TSL. I analyzed like soil and water and, you know, and all about minerals. Then after that, I went to Venezuela. I analyzed minerals again. Then I went to Los Angeles. I analyzed minerals again. And then I went to Germany, I analyzed minerals again. And then I joined CanAlt and minerals, and Maxam minerals. Then at the end, I find out that I know 100 minerals, and I know how they are, you know, and I try to connect them with life. I try to connect them with really like, you know, how is this enzyme, like, and what is calcium, what's magnesium? But we all know about calcium and magnesium, but we never know really about rubidium, cesium, vanadium, all this trace element which can make a difference into our life. And until I met Dr. Pierre, and I call him the angel of this project, because without Dr. Pierre, I could not really, like, you know, done this, you know. But I met him one day, you know, on the corridor of Maxam almost 10 years ago, and he said, Ramiz, you know, write everything down. You know, that's the first lesson I learned from him. Then I got a book, all the observation, I used to write it down. And then every week, he has like, you know, 1 week, like 1 day a week, which we meet and to write what's our observation. Then he spent with me like, you know, lots of time trying to look on the data and see if this data makes sense or not. Then after that, you know, like he was the president of Maxam. We start working on Project Hope and Project Happiness and Project Health, which I call them the 3H. And now it's, I can see the company, which is really dream come true. But at the same time, like, I could have not done it without lots of people sitting here. Like Ralph is one of them. He's my boss, and really, like, he's a true scientist. Without him, I could have not really done it. With other people, like, you know, like Rodney, like Grace, Belwant, you know, so other chemists here, you know, Kevin, you know, and other people. I don't want to say names, then I forget. And I really thank you very, very much for coming today, you know, and I'd like to thank my wife and my 2 daughters that they always hear about 3H more than anything else. Sorry about that, but, you know, and I thank you, Bank of Nova Scotia, for supporting me, you know, and thanks for coming. And without further ado, I hope that you enjoy, and thanks to Monica and all the naturopathic doctors. They come today, take their time, you know, Dennis as well, you know, and all the company's owner, like, you know, like Adrian and other people. Thank you very much for coming. And without further ado, I hope to introduce Dr. Pierre Beaumier. He is former president of the Chemists Association of Canada, the founder of Maxam, and the founder of CanAlt, and the founder of Triangle of Life. So many companies. I thank you very much, and here's Dr. Pierre.
Thank you, Ramiz. You've given us a lecture already. What I'm going to try to do today is talk about some of the research that Ramiz and I have been doing over the past many years, and also talk about different foods and how they affect your health. And hopefully at the end of the presentation, you'll all go home and start eating healthy. So this is the main objective of today. Health, or your body, what happens in your body is very complicated. There's a lot of things interacting, and we don't have all the answers. Ramiz might, but I don't have all the answers. We have some theories, and theories are valid until they're proven not to be valid. So at this point, some of these theories I think are valid and may prove to be very useful in fighting things like cancer. So we're hoping today we can talk about some of these theories. Let's look at individuals. There's I don't know, 100 people in this room, and all of us, have a heart, and all of us have a stomach. But there's been a lot of looking at individuals and why are we different, and in how we react to things. Well, one of the things that here's diagrams of different stomachs. We all have different shaped stomachs, so we absorb things differently. And we all have different aorta, delivery of what's been absorbed in the stomach. So we are individuals. I know that in my case, and I'll be talking about selenium today extensively, but my wife and I eat pretty well the same thing. We've been, both retired for 4 years now, and our profiles are different. I do not absorb selenium from food as well as she does, so her selenium's okay. Mine isn't. So I've had to do something about it. And we are individuals. Each one of us here is different. We'll absorb things differently. The other thing that we have to realize is different elements counter each other. A good example here, the first one is strontium and calcium. And we have so much calcium in our diets, fortified foods, everything's, calcitrate, and bread is fortified with calcium. Now everything there's a lot of calcium, and when you're getting calcium, strontium is not being well absorbed. And I'll be talking about strontium and calcium a bit later on in the talk, but just want you to be aware the two interact. So if you were ever taking strontium, do not take it with calcium, because one will stop the other from being absorbed. And the same is true with zinc and aluminum. If you're deficient in zinc, which will affect your immune system, you're going to find that aluminum is accumulating in your body, which is not necessarily good. Now here's just a few elements that interact. There's probably 60 important elements in your body. This is only 6 or 7 of them. But if you look at zinc, if you load up on zinc, it's going to affect your copper. If you load up on copper, it's going to affect the iron. The iron affects phosphorus. Magnesium and manganese interact. All of these interact. Just imagine how complicated this gets if you have 60 different elements. They're not all that important in your body, but a lot of them are. So the picture gets very complicated. So when I say I don't have all the answers, there's so many interactions going on in the body that it's hard to have all the answers. Now there's a healthy level of everything in your body. You can have a deficiency, and you start to show symptoms of different deficiencies. If you're deficient in zinc, it shows up very quickly. Or it can be toxic. You can have too much of something. Too much of something can be very toxic. There's also toxic elements. For those who are not scientists, that Pb, that would be lead. Hg is mercury. So these are things that accumulate in your body and have very negative effects on your health. So if you are a naturopath and you're looking at the health of an individual, most naturopaths focus on the lead, the mercury, the cadmium. These are very toxic elements, affect your nervous system, and will affect your health. On here you'll also see AS is arsenic. Arsenic is an interesting one. We do not see a lot of it, but Canada has areas where there is a lot of arsenic in the soil. And to the point where it could be considered toxic. So you could accumulate arsenic, and there's been studies in Japan where people with high arsenic in their hair have a positive correlation with cancer. So you do not want to see a lot of arsenic in your hair. And just a story on arsenic, I had some friends over at the house, this goes back a couple of years ago, and I was telling this friend, we do hair analysis, so he says, well, take my hair. So I took his hair, sent it to the lab, and it came back high arsenic. So the next time they came over for a glass of wine, I looked at his wife and I said, are you trying to poison poor Darren? And she looked at me, she was shocked. I said, well, there's high arsenic in his hair. So I was informed that I should be taking her hair. So I took her hair, and she's not a very healthy lady. She's got Crohn's disease, and they have at the time, a 10-year-old daughter who's not very healthy either. I took her hair. All three of them had high arsenic in the hair. So now we start to worry, where is this arsenic coming from? So we looked at the house, there's no real source of arsenic. They're on city water, there's no arsenic there. And it turns out it was the wood deck in the backyard. Pressure-treated wood, until a few years ago, was an arsenic salt. And they live, it's a small house, they live outside in the outside, so they would be barefoot on this, and they would be absorbing this arsenic from the wood. They use this deck 12 months of the year. They have a hot tub out there, so they're walking out on the wood even in the wintertime, barefoot. So they were absorbing arsenic to the point where it was affecting their health. So it's something to worry about. The wood, pressure-treated wood today does not contain arsenic. It contains copper. They've changed it. The industry changed it for some reason without telling too many people. I don't want to get too complicated here, but this is the periodic table of all the elements, and I just wanted to point out a couple things. I hope this works. Right here, these are your electrolytes. Lithium, sodium, potassium, we all know what that is. But further down, sodium, potassium, you've got rubidium, the Rb. This is hard to handle. You've got the Rb and you've got the Cs, the cesium. So these are two more of those electrolytes that we don't talk about very much, but I'll be talking about them today. And right next to that, you've got the Be, you've got the Mg, magnesium, Ca is your calcium, strontium, and barium. That's what your bones are made of. It's kind of interesting. They're all in the same line. They all have similar properties, and that's what's in your bones. In the middle, you've got, if you look at that Cr, the V, vanadium, chromium, manganese, those are all tied in with sugar metabolism. So if you're diabetic, these things affect your sugar metabolism. And I'll be talking about diabetes in a few minutes. So let's look at what's in the scientific literature. The scientific literature, if you look at studies where they claim to prolong life, things are going to make you live longer. And there's three things that show up. There's a vitamin C, an antioxidant. There's a vitamin D. And there's a third one on here, is selenium. And there's been many studies that show that these things make you live longer. I'm going to focus a little bit on selenium today. I won't be talking about the vitamins. We've heard a lot about vitamin C and vitamin D. But if you look at selenium, we looked at the hair of cancer victims or people with poor immune system, and we looked at the hair of healthy people. Our research did about 2,000 samples. We have about 1,000 healthy people. Then we have about 600 or 700 that were sick. Heart disease, liver disease, cancers, That's part by 600 sick. Then we had 335, I think the number is, that were dead. And we got their hair. And we know what they died from. So now we start to look at the patterns. So this is on the healthy. You have about a part per million of selenium. On the deceased, about half a part per million. A weaker immune system. On a subgroup of my data here, on the cancer victims, 0.35. Now selenium is tied in with a protein called glutathione. And there's 4 selenium atoms that hold this protein together. And this is your immune response to all kinds of things. If you started the cell with cancer, your body would send this glutathione to destroy it. You don't want the cell around. So glutathione is really, really important as a first defense against a lot of diseases. And when you don't have enough selenium in your system, you probably don't have enough glutathione to fight off some of these diseases. So you need to make sure you have a proper level of selenium. Cornell University looked at selenium and basically deprivation of selenium associated with impairments in antioxidant protection. And so they're talking about consequently suboptimal expression of one or more selenium-containing enzymes. So you've got these glutathione, which your body needs, part of your immune system, and you may not have as much as you need to prevent diseases from taking place. Cornell University goes on to say, low selenium status is likely to contribute to morbidity and mortality due to infections as well as chronic diseases. And increasing selenium intakes in all parts of the world can be expected to reduce cancer rates. They are talking about 30% reduction in cancer rates if we had proper selenium levels in our system. And that's a big number, 30%. Some specific cancers, it's even higher than that, 50% decrease in some cancers. This is a map of the US, as you can see. The dark areas and light dark areas are areas where there is very little selenium in the soil. So you know there's low selenium, that means there's low selenium in the water, there's low selenium in a lot of the vegetables, a lot of things you're eating, there's low selenium. So consequently, people living in these areas, and this extends up to Canada, if you look at, it doesn't stop at the border. Ontario is part of this on the east. So if you live in these areas, there's a chance, a good chance, depending on your diet, that you're low on selenium. So you're not optimal for defending yourself against some serious diseases. This is the same US. The dark red areas, and if you notice the right-hand side and left-hand side of this is where we were deficient on selenium. This is breast cancer rates in the US per capita. So again, areas that are deficient in selenium, you've got higher breast cancer rates than the central of the US, which has selenium in the soil. This is the Canadian picture, and one thing, I gave this presentation out in Alberta, and you see the second province over there in Alberta, it looks like there's a plume coming from Alberta, and that could possibly be from the oil production out in Alberta. One of the things I was told in Alberta when I was there giving this presentation is, we have selenium in the soil. It's there. However, something is binding it. It's not bioavailable. This means that we have to supplement the feed of our cattle with selenium so they don't have as much disease. See, we feed it to cattle, we feed it to horses, we don't feed it to humans. But there's something that's binding. I suspect what it is mercury. Anywhere you have oil production, mercury is in the ground and comes up with the pressurized gas, and they're flaring the gas, but then the mercury gets deposited in a plume as you go along. So there is selenium in the soil, however, it's not bioavailable. And so the cattle do not get enough of it, you have to supplement. The crops do not get enough selenium. There's also a scientific paper out of Europe was saying the cancer rates in Europe are going to increase. because the crops, the wheat in Europe is now much lower in selenium than it used to be. They've harvested wheat there for 1,000 years, and the soil has now become depleted of selenium, so it's not in the food, it's not in the bread the way it used to be, so they're expecting cancer rates to be going up. So we talked about the effects of selenium, but the second part of this slide here is prostate, colon, and lung cancer. In this study at Journal of American Medical Association, 1996, 50% decrease in prostate, colon, and lung cancer with selenium. So it's really something that we should all be aware of and make sure we have proper levels of selenium in our diets. Today, our company is doing a research study in Africa, and this is a research study on AIDS. These are all people who have got AIDS, and they're supplementing their diet with selenium. And the theory is improving the immune system so they can live with AIDS and not develop full-blown AIDS. Because when full-blown AIDS develops, you die. Here in America, they give you a cocktail of drugs, and that will cost you probably $3,000 to $5,000 a month if you've got AIDS. In Africa, they can't afford this. The selenium is probably something like $2 a month. So if this works, this is going to save millions of lives. So this is the second study of its kind, so they're trying to see if selenium is going to make a difference. And we've analyzed the hair. The starting point, they had decent levels of selenium in their body. Now they're bumping it up a notch to see if that will make a difference. Now I'm going to move on to something different. I'm going to talk about the bone formation. As we get older, a lot of us end up with bone issues, cartilage issues, and so forth. And there's two classes of cells in our body. There's the osteoclast cells that cause bone degeneration. This is the bones that are shrinking. And there's osteoblast cells that form bone. So if you have a broken arm, your osteoblast cells will go there to mend the two parts of the bone, putting it together. Bone degeneration, you're losing about 3 to 4 things: barium, calcium, magnesium, and strontium. To get these things back in your bones, and anybody who's getting elderly, they say exercise. You need exercise to get bone formation, keep healthy bones. The one thing that seems to be in the literature is strontium seems to stimulate these osteoblast cells. So if you have enough strontium in your body, then your bones, you get bone formation. The other thing is in vitro,